So everything needs to start somewhere. So this can start here. Forgive where convention is used. Using convention is lying. It's challenging to speak without convention, without slipping back into the speech conveyance of convention. Even when near total or high degree of mental clarity has been achieved in a permanent and established, some things need to start again and again, even where the consciousness, the individuated consciousness has reached a permanent, lasting, and established permanence of awareness, achievement, the condition of realization. Even so, maintaining the speech conveyance without the trap of convention is challenging. The goal is to speak with total precision, authenticity, and sincere simplicity without diminishing in quality nor engaging in ridiculous levels of cliche, hyperbole, exaggeration, embellishment, nonsense. The discussion is clearly of consciousness. Consciousness is speaking, consciousness is hearing. The avoidance is of the convention I, which is not to suggest a need to remove the I of the individual, rather the misuse of the convention, using convention to lie in speech rather than speech to clarify. Tedious. The convention I is a lie, which is not to take a stance of incongruity with the individual versus the oneness, a convention. To who? Consciousness asks to who? Consciousness asks from where. Clearly, as always, this conversation will become smooth and rapid, even if it takes hold. But to be honest and effective and to become the most powerful and singular expression to this generation of consciousness itself, it must begin. It must begin. Some things need to begin again and again and start again and again. How can consciousness speak from within consciousness and not disrupt totality of consciousness? Probably it can't, or it really doesn't. In the convention, Am the soul is a character in a body being picked up as pixels of light and depicted on a screen, etc., and is situated in a place on a day at a time. It's nighttime in the convention. It's the prominent culture situated between the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans on their special day, the special day of this culture, when they say they began their distinct boundary as themselves without being a subsidiary to something. It's some kind of humor that this day is commemorated with the explosions of micro gunpowder devices, colorful displays in the sky, more convention, or just sounds bursting in the air. On the convention calendar, that means it is 4 July 2021. This is hard. It doesn't seem that it should be so hard. Before the coming destination in this discussion, it's important to bridge from the topic of raw consciousness as consciousness being consciousness to distinct topics as in this convention. What's being spoken of much in the convention, in the spheres of the convention, the spheres of information exchange in 2021? Well, here in this convention is all consciousness is relationship. It might not be entirely precise to say our original state or condition of being was unconscious, but it seems fairly accurate to say that because our original state of being, our original condition of being was literally the lack of relationship. Literally, by definition, that was the condition of our original state of consciousness. Masculine and feminine energy, some abstract, but really here, men's issues, women's issues, the topics of relationships between men and women, and now increasingly, debatably, for not more than 60 years, but increasingly so, and exponentially increasingly so in the past 20 years, extra categorical designations of additional subgendered designations. The most acquiescing I could be there is to say it's some sort of spectrum that becomes moot because it's still the alchemy of a continuum between male and female. It'd be most concise to stick to that. And that's the bridge, the discussion of male-female dynamics. There's a tremendous amount of individual consciousness, so-called AI algorithmic consciousness. Speaking of this, in the information exchange arenas, those speaking about predominantly male points of perspective, generally concerning and regarding the nature of female experience and or perspective, are doing so out of an attempt to reestablish biological basis as a standard of authority for what is and isn't able to be substantiated as male quality. There's been a suppression of the masculine to the most extreme degree that it is an assertion from the feminine, absurd things, obscene things that are pinnacle inversion, the height of exploitation, opportunism, and advantage taking, which is the nature of the feminine. It's by default what the feminine will do. It's devious, disastrous, and completely out of its control. That can only occur in the absence of masculine responsibility. And those who are speaking about this, generally in the information exchange platforms and arenas, are doing so in the convention, or with the most generosity I could grant, the preservation of a species. It's the most generous motivation I would give the majority, or biological restoration to the full dynamic expression of the male, which is in suppression. There's no question that at this stage in consciousness, the male energy, the male form, the masculine being is under arrest, is under attack, is under massive suppression. It's suppression so much to the point that the lie has inverted itself so extreme and opportunistically that it's for granted that the opposite not only is, but has been an ongoing oppression of the feminine. There has never been any oppression of the feminine in the aggregate, which is not to say that oppression of some female individuals or many hasn't occurred, but the aggregate feminine has never been under any kind of suppression, repression, or oppression, but it needs to be. In terms of the convention, the assertion of a patriarchy is the biggest lie. There has never been a patriarchy. The condition of consciousness is ruled by the feminine principle. Consciousness has never evolved beyond rule by the feminine principle. And the reason for that is the lack of the masculine principle standing up and exerting its masculinity, which is again to say, while much can be gleaned from those speaking about male dynamics strictly from within the convention's walls, and the need for a building up of the male to the male and the male's knowledge base and perception awareness of female nature, its innate trickery, deceit, and conniving manipulation for its own gain, an intrinsically narcissistic default opportunism, which again is not to condemn the females themselves, but the consciousness that has allowed that quality to persist, which is to say that those dealing with these man to woman conditions here, while elucidating tremendous amounts of knowledge, clarity, and information, must realize that they're actually doing a much greater thing. They're actually depicting the reality of the cosmos, of the consciousness of existence itself in its current condition. And its current condition is chaos and turbulence because the female is still dominating. So it's to level up the man to woman discussion to realizing this is a singular depiction of the cosmic consciousness or the condition of consciousness currently now.